Okay, we're on. I got the signal. We're on. Mic check. Hopefully you hear me. All right. I'm James Leichter from Aptora. Thank you for being here. Another monthly webinar. We're going to be talking about scheduling, dispatching, work orders, whatever you ask about. There'll be plenty of time for Q&A, and you can ask about anything at all. It doesn't have to be related to the topic. So, whatever you like, except politics. We can talk about that another time. Oh, before I forget, and how could I forget? Check out this sign. This tells you how bad I am. This is what my coworkers handed me just moments ago. Don't forget to talk about Aptora University. So I think this is the only commercial you'll ever hear during one of these events. Aptora University is virtual this year, as you know, or should know. Maybe you don't know. It's next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's April 9, 10, 11. It is virtual. $995 is your total investment for your whole company. People can come and go. You can have as many people as you want. We have a whole schedule. You can go to our website, aptora.com/university, or you'll find the link. And you'll see the whole schedule. You can have people come and go depending on what they want to see and how they want to participate. So if you have any questions about that, you can give us a call or talk to me about it here, and I'll be happy to address it. And I'll put my reminder, guys, behind the camera. I'll put my reminder right over there, and maybe I'll mention it at the end for the latecomers. All right, so let's talk about scheduling and dispatching for a moment. And I'll share my screen. I have Total Office Manager running. Before I get into the schedule board, I'm doing something a little different this time in our demo. And let me move that program over. Okay. Let me get rid of that information center too. So what I'm doing a little different this time is I have basically an empty company file that I'm working with. There's no financial transactions, and I just have a few customers. And I like doing that because it makes it easier to demonstrate things without all the clutter. And I have another one loaded up too with lots of transactions in it if I need it. But let's open up the customer job list and talk about that quickly. All right. So you can see I have very few things in here. And hopefully this will make some of these things a little easier to understand. You notice how I have very few columns. And just a reminder, on all these lists, you have a preference on what columns you want to see. Right there. So I have most of my columns unchecked because I really don't need them. And if you notice here, I have an asterisk next to some of these columns, like service agreement, yes or no. Who's the sales rep? Do they have a balance? Do they have financial history? There's an asterisk. That means that it takes a little extra time to load that information. So if you don't need that information, then just uncheck that box and get rid of that column. You can also rearrange the columns in any order you like, and the software will remember that the next time you log in. So it's different per user. That way it might run a little faster for you, but if it's running fine and speed's not an issue, then don't worry about it. Leave all those columns on there. But if you're looking for a little bit of speed or a little bit of less clutter, you might enjoy getting rid of some of those columns, like I certainly do. Another thing I wanted to talk about, because it's very much related, I think, to scheduling, is the customer job hierarchy. So first of all, what's a customer? A customer really is any contact. Even though they may not have spent money with you, we call them a customer. And we have a column that you can add that tells you whether or not they have financial history, because you might say, if they don't have history, they're a prospect. If they have history, they're a customer. That's one way you can distinguish between the two. That's what I do. In marketing, I know who the prospects are and who the customers are because of that value. Has history, yes or no, true or false. So all customers go on this list and all prospects go on this list. But when should you use a sub or a child, which is actually the technical term, a child? When should you use a child account? You would use that in a couple different scenarios. Let's say that you have a residential customer who owns 2 homes. then what you could do is have, like my name is James Leichter. So you put me in there as James Leichter, and then you have home number 1 and home number 2. And you probably would use the address, but you don't have to. You can use anything you want. How would you do that, by the way? Well, you would find that person and you would right click and do an add sub customer and or job. So it can be a sub customer, like 2 houses owned by 1 person, or it could be a job. Now, when would you use a job? Certainly not for service calls. You would use a job when you want job costing, when you want a report for a job, when you plan to order things, receive things, send people out, you have timesheet entries. If you need all of that to be separated, a separated concern, then create a job. So typically that's like a 2-day event when you're replacing equipment. It could be something as short as 1 day. I mean, it's a judgment call, but really it comes down to, do you need a report just for that particular event? Then you might create a job. But don't create jobs when you don't need to, because it just clutters things up. Now, when you do create a job, you would use that job to create your work orders, enter timesheets, create a purchase order, receive items, etc. When you go to the job costing report, you would pick that particular job. When you're satisfied that everything has been finished with that job, all the billings have been taken care of, etc., then you can inactivate that job. You just open it, check the inactivate box, and it will drop off the list unless you want to see it. So when you open up your list, typically the default is show me active records only, and you won't see that. However, the history will still be there. When you right click on a customer and you go to their history, you will by default just see the history for that particular contact. But if you want to see the whole family, and by the way, make sure your date range, which defaults to this year for speed, click all if that's what you want. Check that box. It will warn you. Came up on another screen. Let me drag that over. It'll warn you. It could be slow. And you could say, don't show that to me again. I don't need to see that. Check that box. Click OK. As I mentioned earlier, I have no history at all. I have no financial transactions in this company file. I did that on purpose. I have another one loaded with plenty of history if we need to look at it for training purposes. But I have nothing to look at in here. But that box right there that I checked would show the entire family up and down. So you have nothing to lose by inactivating the job when you're finished with it. You can see this job right here, HVAC, job number 1. When we're finished with it, we would inactivate it. Okay, so let's right click on that job and we have all these options, right? Also, we could go to actions and we have even more. So you could highlight it, go to actions, and here you could create a purchase order as an example. You could receive a payment. You could create work orders. You can do batch updates in here. If you ever find yourself clicking more than 3 times, then you're probably missing out on a shortcut, because we have, and this is real, it's a real thing, we have a strict 3 mouse click rule. Why? Well, remember, we originally built this software to run my business. It was my program just for me. And then we started selling it to the public. But I had a rule. And the rule was, if we do it on a regular basis, a few times a week was enough, I needed to be able to get to it in 3 mouse clicks. So if you're taking more than that, then you might have missed a shortcut. It's possible we don't have that shortcut. But look around, because chances are if you just right-click in a dead space like this, you'll see a menu. You right-click in a dead space, you'll see a menu. Right-click down here, there's a menu. There's almost always a menu when you right-click somewhere. Oftentimes, even when you have a cursor inside of a record, like an invoice item. So you're looking at an invoice, you have a cursor inside an item. If you right-click, there's shortcuts to go into that item and do things with that item. So 3 mouse clicks. If you are clicking more than that, chances are you're just missing a shortcut. All right, I'm going to close that. Let's go to preferences real quick and talk about those. The one preference that a lot of people are not aware of, and it makes sense when I explain it, but maybe if you read the help topic, it might not make sense. It is, let's go into work orders. Right there, required fields. I recommend that in a work order, you require the department and you require the marketing type. But when you create a customer, you should set the marketing type and you should set, well, let me check that. I'm going to correct myself. When you create a customer, you absolutely should set a marketing type. You may not want to set a department. You may not need to. Where it's really important, ultimately, is that there is a department where you're spending money on invoices, timesheets, item receipts, things like that, bills, checks, that kind of thing. But the department on the customer is not that important unless it's handy to have it there. So I recommend that you make the department and marketing a requirement everywhere it's possible, but that you do not automatically copy those values from the customer because it's easy to get them wrong. Once you set a marketing type in the customer, and let me just do that. I'll open up a customer so we can see what I'm talking about. I don't want to assume everybody's a seasoned veteran on this, and sometimes I do. Let's go to additional information. Here is the department selector. Here is the marketing type selector, and we have something called a marketing campaign, which the marketing type could be part of. If you're curious what that is, push F1 on your keyboard. There's a help topic that explains it. Once you set the marketing type, like let's say they call in and you say, how did you hear about Mr. HVAC? And that's my company, by the way, MrHVAC.com, MRHVAC.com. How did you hear about Mr. HVAC? Oh, my neighbor mentioned you guys to me, and we walked over and looked at the sticker on that outside unit, and I got your phone number. Oh, great. Well, then you would set the marketing type to customer referral. Now, as long as that was correct, you would never change that. Never, ever. If they call back someday and you say, I know you've called before, but what prompted you to call today? I got your letter in the mail. I saw your billboard at 75th and I-35, whatever. Well, you don't change the marketing type in the customer. You leave it alone. When you create the work order the second time around, you change the marketing type at that time to the billboard or the direct mail piece, whatever it was that prompted them. Chances are something prompted them. It could have been your newsletter, but if they can't come up with anything, so be it, leave it alone. That'll be the marketing type in the second work order. But the original marketing type should never change. That way, you'll have reports on how people first entered your company's system, right? How they got into your ecosystem, how they became part of your company. And then you'll have reports that tell you what keeps them coming. So how would you know if your marketing efforts to existing customers is helping you unless you do it this way? You really can't, and that's what it was built for. That's what it was designed for. Any questions about that, hit me up during Q&A, and I'll be happy to address them. I bring that up during dispatching because this is where it happens. We want to make sure that when we create a work order, we get the marketing right, we get the department right, set those values right, and you never have to think about them again. All right, so I'm going to close that. Go back to preferences. That's the required fields. Now, what about the auto copy that I mentioned, where it copies over automatically? If you go to the customer jobs here, and you look at my preferences, and you look at the company preferences, then you will see some of those features. Auto copy things over, like auto populate, customer name field, my preferences, your individual preferences would be, let's see, let me look and see where exactly that one was. I sometimes forget because we have so many preferences, I sometimes forget where exactly they are Populate name field. And, well, I don't see it. Oh, here it is. Moved it over there. See required fields right there? These two boxes down here, we put them here to be more intuitive, and I couldn't find them. So I guess how intuitive was that for me? Not really very intuitive. Do not add or do not autofill marketing, and do not autofill department. So if you check those boxes, and I recommend that, then it won't autofill those things. If you require them, then it will demand your attention. So when you try to close that work order, it'll say, hey, you have to have A and you have to have B, and then you'll think about it and hopefully get that selection right. It's possible if you auto copy it, it'll be out of sight, out of mind. Since it's something you don't have to think about, you could allow it to auto copy the wrong selection. So I recommend that. Now there's a lot of preferences here that we could talk about that are related to scheduling. I'm just going to mention those, and then we'll get into more of the scheduling. I like to start dispatching, scheduling, whether it's a sales call, like you have a sales opportunity that comes in, an appointment, whatever it is. I like to start with a customer job list open, but that's just my preference. Whatever you like is good. My only recommendation is that it be a rule, that you write it into your company's standard operating procedure, your SOP, that you have a certain way of answering the phone, such as, thank you for calling Mr. HVAC. This is James. How may I help you? It can be anything you want, but it should be the same for everybody, and it should go in the SOP. I like to have the customer job list open, and that's where I start. So they call in, and I would say something like, may I have your phone number, please? And I would type it in. You could type in just part of the phone number, type in all of it. I'm reusing the phone number, so I have more than one selection that came up. If you don't see them, you can right-click and do New Customer. Now, there's a preference to copy over whatever you are searching for. So if you search for the phone number or a last name, it would copy over what you searched for if you right-clicked and did New. It figured that's what you were looking for, so it copies it over. Not everybody agrees with that. I love it. That's why it's a preference. Each preference is a difference of opinion. That's why things become preferences, because people might say, I like that very much. I don't know why that's a preference. And the next person could go, I think that's a stupid thing. You should make that a preference. And that's how we got so many preferences, and that's the true story. When you do create a customer for the first time, you'll see this yellow transfer contact button here. And what that'll do is automatically transfer the information for the individual over to the Contacts tab. It's a one-time event. Once you save and close, you won't see it again. You won't see it again. So hit that button, copy over that information to the Contacts tab. Why not? The Contacts tab, incidentally, has, just right-click anywhere, go down to Show Customer Contact tab. It has its own preferences on what columns to show. Again, people don't agree, so it became a preference, and you can rearrange those columns as well. Now, let's say that the record was in here. So you do a search, and here they are. I'll open them. Now, here's my rule. And again, this is just an example. You can do it any way you like. There needs to be a rule. But my rule is, unless you've spoke to them recently, and you know them, and you're sure you don't need to do it, you need to open the record and verify contact info. If you did it yesterday, you can skip that part. But open the record and verify the info. So John's calling. John Doe. So I verified John Doe, pronounced like it sounds. Are you still at 8677 Bourgade? Did I say that right? Okay. And your zip code 66219? Okay. And your phone number is. And can I get a good email for you? And you're filling this out. You're correcting information, filling it out. If John Doe happens to mention Nancy Doe, his wife, then you might add her to the Contacts tab. Maybe John says, hey, my daughter Jessica is going to be home and she can pay you. Oh, that's fantastic. Is she over 18? Okay. And you have your little script. That's not for us. You decide on that, but it has to be a rule. My recommendation anyway. But if you hear someone's name, add them to the contacts tab, and then you've got a place for their title, their role, their other information that you can put in there. And remember, you can add and subtract columns as you saw. Getting back to my rule, I open up this and I verify the info and I fill in information that's missing. And I can go into preferences and require certain fields so that if I hit save and close, I'm reminded that I need certain things that I don't have. Now from here, you can click menu, create a work order, or create an appointment, or a phone message, or a service agreement, or equipment, or whatever. But I'm going to do create a work order. Now I don't have to do that, by the way. If I don't need to open the record, I could have right-clicked for all these options. I could have highlighted it, gone here, so I don't have to open the record. I'll click menu, create a work order. Now it's resaving that info. That's a little bit of a delay because it resaved the customer record just to be sure. I don't remember changing anything, but it's trying to be sure. Safe than sorry. All right, so here I am in a work order. Now notice it left that form open. Doesn't know if I need it or not. I can close it. If you haven't made any changes, by the way, there's no reason to hit save and close. I mean, why wait for it to save, right? Just hit cancel and save yourself a few seconds. Otherwise, it will save and then close. All right, here I am in the work order. It should copy everything over unless I have a preference or a setting that tells it not to. You'll notice the address is a hyperlink. If I click it, it will open my browser and open a map. And if it doesn't, that's your problem, not ours. What I mean by that is it's just a link. It doesn't know anything. It asks Windows to open up whatever browser you have registered, takes you to a map. If it doesn't work, that could be a browser issue, a browser setting. I bring that up because it happens sometimes. Notice down here it says this address and contact information above is pre-populated from the address, etc. And then it mentions that you can just double click in this area to do what? Double click to open the customer. Most people don't know about that. Again, we have that 3 mouse click rule. So you might want to go back to this form or open that form, and that just makes it that much faster. But that's not the only way. You can right click up here in this blank area and you can come down to customer job and you can open them here. And you can open their history, contact log, document links, whatever. If you have an employee assigned to the work order, then you have links to their history, their form, their contact log, their document links. And why is that disabled at the moment? Well, it's just because I don't have anybody assigned to it. Brief description, let's type in no heat. And normally I'd put in a detailed description, but I won't make you go through watching me type. But I recommend a detailed description. You can use that info stamp to start it out. Work order type, we want to get that right. Residential service call, that's good. The date, I'm going to click the now button. The duration in minutes, 90. That's because I have a default of 90, but I can change that if I know better. If I know that's going to take, say, 240 minutes, that's fine. You can see down here a little label tells me that's 4 hours. And I'm ready to assign it, and I'll assign it to Ashley. And week promised. I don't have to use that feature. Some companies really like that. That's good for maintenance when you have the ability to not schedule a day but schedule a week. It's common in the commercial world. The time slot promised, if your company uses it, you can create time slots. And you can say, how does 1 to 3 sound? Oh, that sounds good. How does whatever sound? And then pick that. All right, and then moving over to notes, I've got a place for private notes. These private notes can't be emailed. They cannot be printed. They could maybe copy and paste them into something, but you don't have to worry about accidentally not checking a box or something and they end up being sent. We put those in years ago because of a hoarder. We had some hoarders. It was dangerous to go into their house. It was a mess, and we didn't want them to know. We thought that they were, hoarders, and that's the private notes was born for that reason. So you can put in gate codes and things like that. Technician notes, you're welcome to put notes in there in the technician notes. You're welcome to go in there and embellish notes, correct spelling issues or whatever, but that area is where the technician puts in notes. Those will automatically come from mobile. When they put those in mobile, they'll automatically come over, and that's how they get there. Additional info, well, we didn't copy over the department, so we need to pick that department. That's really important. Your department list could look different than mine. I'm going to go residential HVAC demand service. And then marketing, we asked him, hey, why'd you call? And he mentioned the billboard. And I don't know if I put a billboard in here. I would have to mention billboard and not have one. So we'll just pretend like he said radio ad. All right, I picked the radio ad. Now, just for extra credit, the software keeps track of all the money you spend on that radio ad. All the checks you wrote for the radio ad, the credit card charges, the bills, whatever, all the expenses, it keeps track of all that. It also keeps track of all sales opportunities, all work orders, pretty much everything that has to do with that ad. It also keeps track of the money coming in. So it keeps track of money going out, money coming in. Keeps track of sales leads going in, sales leads closed, not awarded, etc. And you'll have a great report on how well your marketing, the radio ad, worked. Earlier I mentioned a campaign. Well, that ad could be part of a campaign. What's the campaign? Buy a 20-SEER heat pump and get the air handler for free campaign. Or the $1,000 rebate campaign, or the buy 18 SEER and get the 20 SEER system at the same price campaign. Whatever the campaign is, you can put it in the system, give it a name, and then all of the marketing for that campaign becomes a child account, a child record, and it keeps track of all that. Now, I know that's not what the webinar is about, but I wanted to make sure you knew that because we have to set that correct here. Get that department right, get that marketing right here. Get it right the first time. Because everything we do, we don't have to think about it ever again. It's going to carry into everything we do, every timesheet entry, ordering things, etc. If the customer has equipment on file, then we can select it here to give the technician a better idea of the equipment they're working on. Now, as I mentioned, I have nothing in this system on purpose. I could click the Create Equipment button, and we could add the equipment. And the technician can, of course, do that on the fly. Hey, one thing I should mention is a neat feature. Notice it says Add the equipment to the watch list. If I hover over that, a tooltip pops up that might be tough to read, but it tells you what that is. The watch list. Let me explain. Here's a true story on how it happened. Heat exchanger was showing signs of rust. It seemed to be surface rust. The heat exchanger ended up rusting through. The tenant at this shop ended up getting carbon monoxide poisoning. The HVAC company got sued, and it was a big mess. Well, that was many years ago, and it wasn't my HVAC company, but when I heard that story, I added the watch list. That way we can put equipment on the watch list. Maybe you've been to the dentist and they put one of your teeth on the watch list because you had a cavity coming and they wanted to watch it. They check that box and keep an eye on that rooftop unit or whatever it is. You can easily go search for things on the watch list, but that gives you an extra heads up. And it's in mobile too, so the technician will see that it's on the watch list in the mobile app. At one time, you couldn't put something on the watch list in the app, and I think we have added that. If we haven't already, it's going to be in a public release, but I think it's been added quite a while back.
James, we have a quick question real quick.
Yeah, quick question I hear.
How do we run a report to find the equipment on a watch list, or how do we find that information?
How do you find equipment on the watch list was the question. The favorite place for me, anyway, is the list, because I'm always in a hurry. So I would go to customers, and then I would go to the customer equipment list here, and then click this, go down to form preferences, show columns. Let me drag this over from my other monitor. And just make sure that you have watch list checked. So notice right down there, I've got that checked. And then you'll see a watch list, yes or no, on the list. And in addition to that, you can click New Filter here. And I'll go ahead and create this because I should have one in here anyway. Watch list. All right, so I'm creating something called watch list. I'll make it global so everybody can see it. And then I'll select watch list equal to true. And I can add other criteria if I want, like something is equal to false. Like I don't want to see something that's commercial or whatever. But that's enough to get that watch list. Click OK. And then you would see all the watch list equipment in here. From there, you could go to a report, print the list. You could right click, open it in Excel. You could go to reports and see what options you have on equipment reports. And then there are custom data views where you build your own report if you want something very specialized to present the watch list data to you. Now, that answer, by the way, is basically the answer to a lot of things. People often ask, hey, where do I go to see the whatever value? Where do I go for that? And my answer is, well, there might be a report, but let's start with the list. And I always go to the list and show that option. Then I talk about reports, but I also focus on custom data views because the nice thing about the custom data view is that you have the big list. You can use it there, but also you can create a report on it and have it look just the way you like it. And that data, pretty much all pieces of data in the program are available somewhere. And if they're not, you can always let us know so that we can add that. All right, so if we had equipment, we check the boxes here. If we're not sure, we leave it alone. Let's go to items. Now, if the technician has added items, we're of course going to see them here. But we could do them a favor, give them a head start, but we could also do ourselves a favor. Let's say that the diagnostic fee is for overtime or weekend. Go ahead and pick it. Even if it's just a regular diagnostic fee, you might want to go pick it. Let's just do that. Let's click the drop down and let's go to diagnostic fees here. Mine are always DIA. So I have C for commercial, R for residential, and I have OT for overtime, and I have regular time, R, so I pick that. Now, again, I try to avoid telling people what to do, unless they ask me specifically, hey, tell me what to do. But I do like to say this, do what you want, but just be consistent. Put it in the rule book. When we're talking about business, have an SOP. I'm a stickler for my numbering conventions. I want everybody to know DIA, which may not be good for you. You may not like it, but wouldn't it be nice to just know how everything starts? Motors are always MTR, capacitors are always CAP, diagnostics are always DIA, R means residential, etc. So I have regular overtime. If you add that item in here, then you're just saving the technician a step. And why would you do that? When would you do that? When it's just for sure. I mean, without a doubt, they're going to need the diagnostic fee. Go ahead and add it. Even if they have to get rid of it, it's faster to get rid of things than it is to add things. Check this out. I'm going to put my cursor in there, and I'm going to right click. And I can go to edit item. Did you know that was there? We got that 3 mouse click rule. We're serious about it. I own the software. I'm the boss, right? So if I don't see a menu, I'm telling one of the programmers, hey, go add that to the menu, or I do it myself. Because I'm real strict about that. Why waste time going to a list and looking this item up? It's crazy. So I'm going to click Edit Item just to show you a feature. And that goofy little pop-up right there, that's Windows. I don't know why that has to happen. People ask me that all the time, and I can't get rid of it. Windows wants to pop that up. Someday I might figure that out. Here we are looking at the diagnostic item. And I'll go to Accounting. Down here, I've got an option to call it a diagnostic fee to the software. So I'm telling the software, this is a diagnostic fee. That way I can run reports on how many diagnostic fees I sold or something like that. We use that information. Also, you might want to auto add it to something, and you can do that by checking one of these boxes. So if I want to automatically add it to a work order, I can do that. If I want to identify it as a commonly used item, now I can go to the item list and filter by commonly used items. I can create filters like you saw me create one for the watch list. I can create filters using that piece of information, show me commonly used items. The technicians, there's a button to click in a work order, invoice, anywhere they're selecting items that says show me only commonly used items. And that makes it a whole lot easier to find, the 25 or 35, maybe 50 things that they use 80% of the time. All right, so I came in here just to show that to you. If it's in blue, then it's also applicable to the mobile app. You can see a little note there. All right, so I didn't make any changes. I'm going to click cancel and save myself 3 seconds of save time. Here I am back on the work order. I'll go to assets. What the heck is that? Well, you probably know it's assets of your company. Why would you use it? Let's say that you need a genie lift or a pipe threading machine or something like that, and you want to associate it with a job. Maybe it's a 40-foot ladder, and your company has a limited number of those, and they're not on every vehicle. You could associate the asset with the work order. When you do that, then it makes it more obvious that that's needed for the job, but also it schedules the asset. It actually schedules it. So you got a pipe threading machine. I'm talking one of those rigid pipe threading machines, that are $8,000. You can only afford so many, right? Be nice to be able to schedule it, and that way, if I need one, I don't think it's available. And I come looking for it and it's gone. Well, it'd be nice if you could schedule it. You can. Just pick it. Just put that in as an asset and add it to the work order, and the software will assume it's taken during that work order period, whatever date time frame that is. And then when the work order is completed, then it's available. Or when the time elapses, then it's available. All right, back to general. Now, it takes a lot less time to create a work order than it does for me to talk about it. That seems like a lot. But when you're doing it, it's just a few minutes. Let's go to menu, quickly talk about some of the things that are in here. I'm going to do menu save just to save my work. All right, go back to menu. We got a lot to talk about. I won't get into all of it, but we have shortcuts. You can complete the work order. You can complete it and enter a timesheet. You could do this on the schedule board too, right click. You could cancel it, create a callback work order, see the signature from the field. You could create things. So these are links to create things from the work order. Remember, the advantage is whenever you create from something, you're bringing over all of those pieces of data, unless your preferences tell the software to do otherwise. You're bringing over that data. You're saving yourself a lot of trouble. Document links, maybe they took a picture. Don't let the word document fool you. It's really anything. It could be a photo, a PDF, a document, any file that's associated with a work order. You can see those. The select invoices feature here allows you to associate invoices that have already been created with the work order. So you forgot to create the invoice I started to say it wrong. You forgot to create the invoice from the work order. And you wish you had, because you realize that feature exists and you've got great reporting. Well, this allows you to go back and select an existing invoice and everything is good. There's printing options. Here's what I wanted to show you. Down here, you've got shortcuts that people forget about to the customer, to the employee. You've also got a work order contact log. Each work order has a dedicated contact log. Let's click that, see what that's all about. So here, I have a contact log for the work order. And I'll just type in notes, and I'll pick a topic, and I'll just type in some gibberish. All right, why would I use that? Well, you might not use it in the office, but you could. you might use it in the field. And what that allows you to do is keep regular notes for an ongoing job where the little notes box is not enough. You might want to have chronological notes where you have the ability to pick topics and subjects and things like that. You may never need that feature, but I wanted to make sure you knew it existed. What we added it for were ongoing jobs. Ongoing jobs where lots of technicians were involved and they all had something to say or something to note about the job. I'll hit save and close, go to menu, go back to that. Work order contact log. Again, open it, just keep adding. Keep adding to it. Now, where do you see that? People often ask, where do I see that? Well, you can open up the work order and look at it. What? When would I ever think to do that? Well, you might. I mean, that's what it's there for because it's associated with a work order. But check this out. 3 mouse click rule at work. I'm going to right click anywhere in here. I'm going to go down to customer job and I'm going to click contact log. All right, so what am I at? 2 clicks. It took 2 clicks and I'm not seeing the work order contact log. What? I got 1 click left. Right down here. Include work order contact log notes. Check the box. There it is. So what that does is that just brings in all of the work order contact log notes that belong to this particular contact. And if I need to see the work order notes, it's a fast way of doing it. It will mix in notes for the contact, for the customer, with all the work orders. So it may be more than you want to see, but it is a fast way to get those notes in there. Also, like we saw in history, you have the ability to check this box and add the whole family. Now you're bringing in contact log notes for the entire family, potentially for every work order. It could get huge, but that's okay. Now, pay attention to topic, that topic right here. That topic could have been a complaint. So let's say that you picked for a topic in here, like a customer complaint. I'll just pick a admin complaint. Let's do complaint about company. All right, there we go. Complaint about company. Save and close. That is valuable information. Too bad you can't do anything with it. Well, you can actually. Let's go to reports. Let's go to contacts and jobs, contact log, customer. If you know the date, pick it. But most importantly, grab the topic. So what I'm looking for are complaints. What kind of complaints? Admin complaint, complaint about the company right there. And then I'm going to do the date range of all because I'll pretend like I don't know what date that was. And all users because I don't know the user, but maybe you do. This would be really handy, by the way, before someone's annual review, their quarterly performance review, something like that. See what's in there. Click preview. And bring that over. Well, we don't have much in there, do we? Click there. What? Where's the information? Well, we want to do include details because in that case I didn't type anything in, so I didn't have much to show you because I didn't type anything in. So you want to make sure you have your details available to you, and don't forget, if you're not sure what you're looking for, you don't have to use one filter or the other. Just use whatever filter you're absolutely sure of. And here we go. There's some contact log notes. All right, back to the work order. Now that I got my work order finished, one more thing I'll say before I close it. Service agreement, no, they don't own one. Financial history, no, they've never spent money. Credit hold, nope, they're not on credit hold. Open PO, we don't have an open PO. We don't have one. What would that mean? That means that we've ordered stuff for them and we're waiting on it. If you want to, when you see an open PO, you can double click on that box and it will open the work order history form and take you to the PO tab. That way you're saving a mouse click or two. The work order history will show you everything that you might want to know about a particular work order, such as invoices associated with it, timesheets, purchase orders, AP, accounts payable activity like bills, credit card charges, and journal entries, adjusting journal entries perhaps. So save and close, and I've got the work order saved. All right, now what do I do with it? Or what can I do with it? Pretty obvious, right? You know the deal. I'm going to go to company, and I'm going to go down to schedule board and open up my schedule board. And this should look really boring because I'm only going to have one work order on here. There it is. You probably know it, but just in case, don't forget you have profiles. And I don't have any profiles in here. I just have the default, which would show everybody. So click your Create Profile button and create a profile for, say, your service department, maybe another one for replacements, new construction, design build, whatever you have. Just it helps you make the board a little bit more manageable. In my case, I've only got 5 people here, so I've got all that extra room, and I don't really need to worry about it. Over here, I would have all of my not scheduled work orders, or my appointments, or my work orders that are on display. So just list the work orders that are on the schedule board at this moment. I might be able to see all of them without scrolling, so that gives me the ability to see them. Show me the tools and the equipment that are scheduled. I mean, I want to see tools and equipment that are scheduled. Show those to me. GPS tracking. Select employees. Select departments. Regardless of my profile, I can just cheat the system and come in here and add people and get rid of people if I want. It doesn't mess up my profile. It just allows me to say remove Andrew because he's out today. He's on vacation, whatever. Or I might bring in Andrew, and look at that. There's Andrew. Crazy hat. So bring in Andrew because he's helping out with the department. Maybe Andrew typically works in new construction, but he's running service calls today. So we bring in Andrew temporarily. And that's true with, let me click that again. That's true with like departments. You might bring in a certain department temporarily without affecting your profile. So that's what that is for. And let's go back to not scheduled work orders. You might notice there's a little thumbtack right there, and that means that it's anchored. If I hit that thumbtack, it disappeared and it's gone. And where is it? Well, it's over here. So click that, bring it back, click away, it disappears. Also, you can unlock it with this feature, and then that would allow you to move it around. Like you can move this thing to another screen if you want. Sometimes people do this and regret it. They make changes to the schedule board and they can't figure out how to get it back to the way it was. And when that happened, funny story, when programmers added that capability, I told them that they needed to add an easy button to put it back the way it was, and they went, yeah, well, all right, we'll see. And I knew, because I have gray hair, and at the time they didn't, I knew better, and sure enough, we ended up adding it, because a lot of people called, and I knew they would, and probably happened to me. They called and were like, I clicked something and it disappeared. What happened? Well, now you can just go up to the menu, and you can put things back the way they were. Reset layout, and it puts the map back, it puts the list back. But these components can be rearranged, moved around, even dragged to another screen if you would like them to. When I right-click on the work order, I've got lots of options, lots of shortcuts. One common shortcut, especially before the mobile app was widely used, is the Add Timesheet Entry. It just makes it easy for you to add a timesheet here. The Quick Edit is handy because that allows you to just quickly edit certain features or certain elements of the work order if you need to. Also, you can double click to open the work order. Now, if I did that, it would open up on my other monitor and you wouldn't see it necessarily. But don't forget to right click because you have a lot of options in here. One option that a lot of people don't think about when they right click here is the confirmation status. The confirmation status. That is part of a text messaging feature where you can send out confirmations through a text message and people can reply to it. And if you do send them out, then it will automatically set this to confirmation sent. So when you right clicked and looked at it, it would be sent. And if they were to confirm, when they get that text message, if they were to confirm, it would automatically move itself to confirm. And then same with they've requested a reschedule or they've requested a cancel. Now, if you don't have that feature or don't want to use it, you can still, as you've seen, manually make these settings, because what this might mean to you is you've made a phone call. Maybe you called them and they answered and you said, hey, just want to remind you, it's James, Mr. HVAC. Want to remind you we're coming out tomorrow between 2 and 5. Is that still going to work? Oh, yeah, that's fine. And then I would do confirmed. Maybe I left a voicemail. Maybe I sent an email. I might do confirmation sent. If they respond, then it's confirmed. So you can use that manually if you'd like, but it also works with the text messaging system. And then the document links finally for the work order. Maybe you want to see images. The technician said, I took pictures of that heat exchanger. Look at them and tell me what to do. And then you would just go to document links and open those up. You have shortcuts for that. Lots of shortcuts. Let's talk about settings real quick here. If I click settings, the settings wheel, then I have options on controlling the look, behavior of the schedule board. Probably the best setting, or at least the one that I go to first if I'm helping somebody set up, is changing the background of the work order depending on the status. When it's completed, I want a different color than when it's dispatched, en route, scheduled versus working. That way, when the technician changes the work order status in the field, I could be just sitting at my desk drinking coffee like I always do. Maybe I'm catching a nap and I look up and I see the color changed and I know he's en route. And the color changes again and I know he's there working. And the color changes again and I know he's completed. And then I see the color change on another one and I see he's en route. And wouldn't that be great if I could really just drink coffee and all that would happen and I didn't have to do anything? But that is a nice feature so that you can see at a glance what's going on. As I mentioned, you can undock one of these things like the scheduler and move it over to a TV on the wall. You know, that TV could be a monitor. You can move it over to another monitor, which could be a TV on the wall. So don't forget that undocking feature can be really helpful. You have lots of preferences on the scheduler here, like the layout of this. Probably the most popular is whether or not you want the text across the top or do you want them along the side. Which one? And what time do you want the scheduler to start? I have mine at 6 a.m. Well, if you don't need it at 6 a.m., just make extra room and make a change to that. So I'll just make mine, rather than starting at 6 a.m., I'll say 7 a.m., and that just gives me more space. Same way with the end. I might want to have it end not at 8, but maybe at 7. And that just gives me more space to work with. And I can change these tick marks, like how much space is in between each hour, and more. I go to work order layout. I can decide the fields that I'm able to view right here. Like you can see customer at the top. Years ago, a good client, a coaching client, someone I used to go visit a lot and do on-site work for, he said, you know, James, I don't want to complain, but we need whatever it is at the top. And we didn't have that ability. He asked me to make that change. And I said, well, can't make that change because if it makes one person happy, it'll probably make 5 people unhappy, but I'll make it a preference. Preference again, right? So we built this. And what you do is you just add fields and then rearrange them. So if you don't want the customer at the top, you want the zip code at the top. And I think that's what they wanted. I think it was zip code at the top, or the city, state, zip. You can move those around. And you can do the same thing with appointments. Again, if you see that little thumbtack, that gives you the ability to undock it, and you can make it floating, auto hide, tabbed, whatever. You have those options. You may not care about those, but they're there someday if you do want them. This area over here, don't forget, you've got little Excel, like Microsoft Excel type filtering that you can use. And you can also group these work orders. Imagine a long list of work orders that could be grouped by customer, assigned to, by status, by type. You group them just by dragging them into this area up here, and that's how you group them. All right, let's say that you don't have the app. Chances are what you're going to do is you're going to right-click on the work order, and you're going to change the status here yourself from, say, scheduled to dispatched. And then at some point you might say they are now en route. Notice my color's not changing, which is a shame, right? I should fix that. I should have like green for go en route. And I should have like red for canceled or something like that, whatever you decide. But you might manually do that if you don't have the app. You probably would also manually do your timesheet entries, and that would open up the timesheet. Where did it go? Well, it's in here. So you click that, it opens up the timesheet in the software, and I must not have clicked it, or clicked it very well. All right, let's do that again. I'll right click on there. Oh, I have two programs running, that's it. I forgot. I got my program running twice, so I picked the wrong one. Let me grab the correct one. Okay. To move that to the right spot. All right, so what'll happen is when you do that, it'll open up the timesheet, and it'll automatically fill that out depending on your setup. Now, let's talk about the setup here. And again, bring over a different one. Let's talk about the setup for the timesheet. And I'm going to pick her. Okay. So here I am looking at her. I'm going to right click because I have that 3 mouse click rule. I'm going to go to payroll items, employee payroll items, that is. And I want to show you how to set up the overtime feature. You can see here that it's tracking a lot of information. These labels are pretty new here, and it has the ability to automatically calculate the overtime and add that item, the overtime item, automatically. So when they reach 40 hours, it'll turn it into overtime. The setup for that is right here, default overtime earning item. So just create one for that. Another one we've added, and you won't see this. If you go look, you're not going to see this because it's not public yet. But another one we've added is default earning item for other purposes. For other purposes. And what might those other purposes be? Well, we have another feature coming out in mobile which allows you to easily clock in and out without a work order. Open up the app, there'll be a button, clock in. You can optionally add notes, pick a topic, but you don't have to have a work order. In fact, it's designed to work without a work order, and then you can clock out of it. And that's going to enter a timesheet into Total Office Manager like it did before, but there'll be no work order. Well, the advantage to that is you can associate that activity with a different earning item, such as a non-billable item. So you could have an earning item labeled non-billable. It could be standing time. It could be whatever you call it. Basically, what it's used for is to denote, to distinguish from billable time. That way you could have billable time on one earning item and non-billable time on another earning item, and you have all the reports. Any report that has earning item information on it, now you can use those reports to easily see your billable time versus your standing time or unbillable time, whatever you want to call it. Different companies call it different things, but that's what that is for. So you've got regular time, you've got an overtime earning item, you've got a default earning item for travel, and now you have one for unbillable time, time that can't be associated with a job. So you have really good reporting. You can easily see everything about travel time, regular working time, overtime, non-billable time, etc. And that's where you set it up.
James, we have a quick question.
And we have a question. What's that?
When will that clock in/out feature go public on mobile?
The question was, when will the clock in, clock out feature go out on mobile? I don't know for sure, but it's finished and tested, and I think it's just waiting on the next update slot. So it could be, it's probably weeks, not months. I mean, it could be this month. I'm not totally sure. I wish I had an answer for you, but I don't know the cycle. But I'm going to guess that that update should be out in a couple of weeks. One thing that's in that update, by the way, is another round of changes on our so-called good, better, best. Not that you have to call it good, better, best, and you don't have to be limited to 3. You can have a lot more than that. Give it any name you want. But we've been working on this good, better, best concept for a while. We have another big update on that feature set, and that will be part of the update as I understand it. So it should be a good update. Sorry I don't have a perfect answer for you, though. I'm thinking it's probably a couple weeks. Okay. All right, so we talked about the timesheet, how to set that up so that it automatically grabs travel time, regular time, overtime, unbillable time, etc. A lot of it you don't have to worry about because the technician's doing that in the field, and it's just happening for you. All right, let's bring back that guy. There it is. All right, here we are on the schedule board, and I'll right-click, and I'll change my status from en route to working now that they're working. And at some point, he's no longer working, and he'll mark himself as completed. Now, when it's completed, you can't move it. That's a common phone call, is I can't move that around. It's completed. You can temporarily uncomplete it, if there's such a word. You can move it to working, move it, and then change the status if you'd like to move it. A couple preferences that I should mention here is in mobile, there's a preference that allows the end time of the work order to match the end time of the timesheet entry. So let's say, for example, a work order was scheduled from 2 to 5, and they finished at 4:30. You have the ability to switch this preference on so that the work order end time changes automatically from 5 to 4:30. Again, because that's when they completed the work order, or pardon me, not completed the work order. That's when their timesheet completed the work order. So the work order ended at 4:30, not 5. People want the work order end time to be changed from 5 to 4:30. That's a preference. If you didn't know about it, you can change that. There's also a preference to change the start time depending on, again, when they lift it and clock in. So if they clock in to that 2 p.m. work order at 2:30, it'll change the start time of that work order to 2:30. Why wouldn't everybody want that? Well, you may or may not want it. You may want to know that they arrived late, that they started early, that they got done early, they got done late. You might want to preserve the original work order start time and or end time. That's why it's a preference. You can decide, but that is a preference. You also have preferences that control what work orders they can see on their mobile app. You might want to show one work order per day. When they complete that work order, it would then show them their next work order and their next and their next, but they would only see one at a time. You might say that's good, but I'd like them to see their first work order tomorrow also. That's a preference. It will show the next work order for tomorrow, the next day, Monday, whenever the next work order is, it'll show it. Now also there's a preference to show those work orders depending on the status, because you might say, when I schedule a work order, I don't mind them seeing it. That's fine. But then you also might say, I don't want them to see work orders that are scheduled. I only want them to see work orders that are dispatched. That's a preference as well. Those are in mobile. Those preferences are in mobile. So there's a lot of preferences in mobile that control the whole experience, but there's a lot centered around dispatching and scheduling. One of the important things that people ought to do in the software, my suggestion, is keep their eye on the work order list. Look at it every morning. You come into the work order list and you check it out every morning, because this allows you to quickly see what was finished, what was not finished, etc. That's the first thing that I want to do anyway, is I want to see, is there anything from yesterday that we did not get finished? I'm looking for work orders that weren't completed that I expected to be completed. Depending on what you do in the company, you're definitely going to want to rearrange these columns. You're going to want to add columns, get rid of columns, etc. You're going to want to do that because your job might be different than mine. One thing that I may not care about is whether the job got completed. Maybe the only thing I care about is, was it invoiced? That's my big concern. I invoice around here. You on the other hand, you worry about stuff that didn't get completed. Me, I don't worry about that. My job is to make sure we send out invoices. So I want my list to look a little different than yours. I certainly want my filters here to look differently. So you might want incomplete work orders. Click that. You might want precision tune-ups this month. For scheduling purposes, you want to see all the precision tune-ups for this month, or you want to see work orders today that have been invoiced. I want to see work orders today not invoiced, and there aren't any. But that's only for today. Let's right-click on that and go to Edit and see how that was made. Here you can see date this week and invoiced equal to false, and status equal to completed. So I could add a little bit extra information to that label, so it says work orders today not invoice completed. But since I know what it is, I don't. That's how you can make that filter work for you. Notice how it's all disabled. Well, it was created by somebody else, and I can't do anything to it. The administrator can come in here and edit it, but I'm not allowed to edit and delete other people's filters. Only the admin can do that. If I created it, then I can mess with it. That's why you want user filters and you want global filters. Sometimes you just want to filter for yourself. Other people aren't going to use it. It doesn't really apply to them, so you create just a user filter. One thing that I forgot to mention when I was in the customer job list is under form preferences we have find as you type. Customer, number, assigned to. If I go up to the customer list, I'll go back, find as you type by name, last name, contact, address, work address, phone, ID. And of course what that means is when you open up the list, you don't have to put your cursor in that quick filter box. You can just start typing and it'll take you to that record based on your preference. When you select one, it remembers that preference. And don't forget, as I mentioned, whatever you searched for, if it doesn't find it and you create a new record, it'll add that as a preference. How many times have I said preference today? That should be like a prize. You know, we have a giveaway prize. I'm looking at my coworkers behind the camera. We'll have a giveaway prize. How many times? He said it 37 times. You're the winner. All right. Do we have any questions I need to pause for?
We have no questions.
All right. Okay. Well, then we're coming up on our end of this webinar on scheduling and dispatching. There's a lot more that I could say, certainly, on the topic. We could get into mobile and spend another hour and a half talking about that as well. But I do want to remind you that if you go to aptora.com or just push F1 on your keyboard, like for example, you open up a work order or a customer, whatever the record is, if you want to get some help on that, then push F1 on your keyboard. I'm going to push F1 on this keyboard right there. I'll drag that over so we can see it loading. It should open your browser, and it's going to go find that help topic and load it. And it's taking its time. There it is. All right, so here's how to add a customer. And there's a whole help topic on that. But it explains all the fields that are on that form, and it has other topics that are related to it. And you just search for what you want. So let's say that you want to know more about job costing. Type in the word job costing, and it'll find topics related to job costing. And there's plenty of them. And then you can read about that. You can go to YouTube. We've got something like 450 videos on YouTube. And that's pretty good right there. And also one final thing here. Let's go to Aptora's website. Go to resources. There's the knowledge base. That's where I was. Rather than push F1, that's how I got there. And then you can also check out the blog. Let's say you don't want to know about the software in particular, but you want to know about the industry, managing the industry. Go to our blog, and you'll see that we write articles every week, constantly writing articles. And so how to write a winning HVAC business plan with a free template. Click on that. It doesn't have anything to do with the software, but it has everything to do with your business. So you might like that. Download the template. And that takes me to my reminder, Aptora University. We'd love to see you there. You don't have to get on an airplane. You don't have to pay for a hotel or anything. I don't have to take you out for drinks. You know, that's a killer, right? That costs a bunch. So I don't have to do that. That's great. You don't have to go out with me. That's even better. You do it remotely. $9.95. Anyone in your company, everybody in your company, it's a flat rate fee. They come and go as they please. You just look at the schedule and have people come and go as they please. Plenty of Q&A. We'll have some guests, and it'll be a lot of fun. All virtual. Virtually great.
We've got one last question.
One last question. Okay.
Show us the preference where the mobile users can see dispatched or scheduled, how to set that up, and the work orders.
Oh, okay. So the question was, show the person asking the question where the preference is for whether or not a technician can see a work order based on is it scheduled or is it dispatched. That is pretty easy to show because they're all really located in the same spot. Log in as you or an administrator, as long as you have permission to do this, just log into mobile, go to that hamburger menu, and that's what they really are called, and then go to more, right here, and it's fell asleep. I've had this open since the beginning, and my browser just fell asleep, so let's let it wake up, and then go to security, user permissions, and then we'll pick the user we're working on, and I'll just double click on her. Now, this is pretty big, a lot of stuff in here. You could push Control F to try to find something. So I'll do that, and I'll type in work for like work order. And then, I could type in, obviously, work order, but I'm going to make it hard on myself and do work. So I don't see it yet. Work order, price, no, don't see it. Lists, no, that's not it. And I did that on purpose just so you could see how to find these things. Allow multiple invoices to be created from a work order. That's not what I want. All right, here they are. This is the answer. They're all down here. Allow editing of work order not assigned to the person. Allow user to cancel work orders. I don't want that. Allow user to edit work order numbers. No, I don't want that. Enable automatic work order end time. Talked about that. Only display one work order at a time. show the next work order after today, update work order start time from first timesheet entry right there. So pretty much all of those are here, except one. I got one more to show you, but that's where you'll find most of the ones I talked about. All right, now let's back out of there. And here we are where we saw security. You can go to settings and go to the, let's see, investment guide. Let me see. That sounded like a question, didn't it? Not an answer. Let me go in here and take a look and see if I need to show you settings in here. No, I didn't talk about those. All right. Where is that?
Hayden just joined. He said they think they're looking for show work order in mobile app when status is setting, which is in settings in general instead of user security.
Oh, okay. I'm getting feedback on where to go look. Yeah, I know it's not in user security. It's in settings where I am, but it's like, okay, where in settings is that? It's not general. Work order. Let's try work order settings. Most of the time you set these and forget them, and then I don't have to go back. Well, we're seeing every setting there is here.
It's in general in the top left.
Oh, I was just there. I missed it. Thank you, Caden. Let's go back to general. And oh gosh, you know what? I was in here and missed it. Sorry about that. At least we got to see a bunch of other settings. All right, so here's the answer. Let's go back home since I flubbed this up so badly. Here we are at home. Click hamburger menu, go to more, go to settings. Upper right hand, upper left hand corner rather, general. Click that. And here it is. Show work order in mobile app when status is scheduled, dispatched, or both. Right there. And that is where you find that. All right, so check out all these settings. If you go in here and just look around, you'll see that there's just a lot of settings like grids. You can decide what columns they can see, typically the order, the sorting, etc. There's just a bunch of settings because everything in here that's a setting or a preference is just a difference of opinion. People just want things differently, and that's why there's so many. But once you set them, typically you forget them. I'll give you one last tip on the settings and preferences. It's people ask me all the time, can't you just set them for me? Like I'm sitting next to somebody, can't you just set them for me? And I can, and I'll probably get a lot of them right. They also ask, don't you have like an easy button where you just click this button and all the settings are done? That's tough because you really have to have SOP. Like you really have to say, here's how we schedule, dispatch, do invoices, work orders, etc. Once you have all that on a piece of paper, you know, someone like me who knows the program fairly well, you saw I couldn't find that preference today, I can go in and find those preferences and set them once I know how you do things. What I'm getting at is it's a whole lot easier when your company starts defining your workflow, and then it's easier to go find the settings for that workflow. All right.
One last question.
One last question. Okay.
We do HVAC and plumbing. Can I set things up so the plumbers cannot see the HVAC items on mobile?
So the question was, they do HVAC and plumbing. Can they set things up so that the HVAC people can't see plumbing or plumbing can't see HVAC? And the answer is no, not easily. There's no clean way of doing that. The only thing that we could offer is I didn't tell you where I was going. Here I am in settings. Let me go to investment guide. You can control what item types people can see. And I know that's not ideal, but it may just happen to be that certain item types don't apply to certain departments, like they'll never need a group item or they never need service items or something like that. So yeah, you have that option. You have a few other options here. And that controls what people see when they go to add items to an invoice, a work order, or anything else. But we don't have a clean way of separating items from one department or another. Another option, I suppose, is I'm thinking this through. There is a feature, it's a preference, that's 39 times. There's a preference, that's 40, that allows you to assign assign warehouses to technicians, to employees, to users. That way, like for example, Will, who is relaying that question, I could assign him to truck number 110, to warehouse number 12, whatever. And he would only be able to see what's in there. So that's one option you have is it's not easy, but you could create one warehouse for each one of these people that you need to control. And then if it's not in their warehouse, they don't have access to it. Again, not ideal, but that's about all that I can offer you at this moment. I've often thought about that, by the way. That's come up on Aptora Pros on Facebook. And I thought about, well, what would be an easy way or a clean way, an intuitive way of taking care of that, where you don't want plumbers to see HVAC parts and vice versa. And I really couldn't think of a clean way, except you can imagine having to assign all these items to people. It'd be pretty time consuming. Maybe categories. You could do it maybe with categories, but that feature's not in there. I'm just thinking about how I've looked at that historically, and I've never really come up with a clean way of doing it. Any other questions?
I think we're good.
We're good? Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate the questions always. I like that more than anything. So please feel free to ask whatever questions you would like to ask during these webinars. And if you have ideas for other webinars, let us know, because we just have to sit in a room and say, what do you want to do next month, and put together a schedule. I'd rather know what people wanted, so feel free to give us your input on that. And don't forget about Aptora University. How could I? It's sitting right here on my laptop. Hey, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Once again, I'm James Leichter, and I want to thank my coworkers behind the camera and thank all of you for being here, and I will see you next time. Good night.